When the legendary actress Gene Tierney opened up about her experiences in Hollywood's golden age, her words shocked even the most seasoned film historians. Known for her beauty, elegance, and unforgettable performances in classics like Laura and Leave Her to Heaven, Tierney embodied the glamour of the 1940s and 1950s. Yet, behind the polished images on screen, she carried memories that painted a much darker picture of Hollywood's so-called golden years. In a series of interviews and reflections, Gene admitted that not every star from that era was as charming or noble as the public believed. In fact, she confessed that there were 9 specific Golden Age stars whom she considered actually evil. These revelations were not made lightly. Gene Tierney was never one to stir up scandal or indulge in gossip. Throughout her career, she carried herself with grace and maintained a reputation for professionalism. But in her later years, as she looked back on her journey, she chose to speak honestly about the darker realities of life behind the studio lights. Without revealing every detail publicly, she described encounters that left her shaken, disillusioned, and at times even fearful of the very people who had once been revered by millions. Tierney's description of these 9 figures painted them as manipulative, cruel, and, in some cases, downright predatory. She explained how fame gave them unchecked power, allowing them to exploit colleagues, mistreat crew members, and manipulate vulnerable newcomers who were desperate for their big break. According to Gene, the smiling faces the audience adored on the silver screen often hid personalities that were cold, ruthless, and self-serving. The evil she spoke of was not just in their actions but in the way they thrived on hurting others to preserve their own stardom. For Gene herself, who endured her own share of personal struggles, including battles with mental health and the tragic circumstances that affected her family, these experiences left lasting scars. She emphasized that while Hollywood was a place of magic and dreams, it was also filled with danger, especially for young women trying to find their footing in a cutthroat industry. Her revelations about the 9 stars were not meant to destroy their legacies but to remind the world that fame often hides a darker reality. The most shocking part of her confession was her insistence that these individuals had been celebrated as paragons of charm and sophistication during their time. Fans adored them, critics praised them, and studios promoted them as role models. Yet, according to Gene, behind closed doors, they revealed a much different side, one she could never forget. She described instances of cruelty on film sets, exploitation in personal relationships, and acts of selfishness that left colleagues heartbroken. Her decision to label them as evil was a reflection of how deeply those actions had impacted her and others around her. The legacy of Gene Tierney's words is twofold. On one hand, they reveal the bravery of a woman who, after decades of silence, chose honesty over myth-making. On the other, they serve as a warning about idolizing celebrities without acknowledging their flaws. For her, exposing the truth was not about revenge but about lifting the veil on a world that had long hidden its shadows behind dazzling lights. Today, Gene Tierney's confession resonates strongly with audiences who recognize that Hollywood's golden surface often covered up deep cracks. By revealing that 9 Golden Age stars were actually evil, she not only redefined how we remember that era but also reminded us that behind the glamour, the industry was, and still can be, a place where power often corrupts.